Deborah. I'm doing something different today. I'm starting this episode with a request. As you listen to this episode, pick 2 things that you found helpful or intriguing or got you saying amen to that. Then include those 2 things in a podcast review. Why? Well, I'm not going to lie to you. This show has received 25 5-star reviews, but because I look at my podcast analytics, I know I have way more than 25 listeners. So I want to know, what do the rest of you think? So pick 2 or even 3 things that stuck with you and include them in a review. And if you'd like to share something with me directly, you can email me at Deborah, D-E-B-R-A, the short form, Deborah, at thefinalsaypodcast.com. And just a note about this episode, my guest is a flamenco guitarist, and so we'll get to hear some of his music coming up. So here's the show.
And I guess when I look back on my life, I could easily look at it as a success or a failure. I guess it's somewhere in between. Mm-hmm. If I just focus on what I did, and what I'm proud of, and what I'm happy about, it's plenty. And 45 years is a lot of time. I want to be remembered as a good father. I think that said, that's probably what I'm most proud of, is that I've been able to be his father. And not just being a father at all, but also to somebody on the autism spectrum who was an extreme challenge in his early years.
You're listening to The Final Say, conversations with people facing death. This is the podcast where you can get comfortable talking about death and learn some things about life from people who are facing death. My guest today is Ben Phipps, painting contractor by day, flamenco guitarist by night. Almost 2 years ago, Ben was diagnosed with a brain tumor, a glioblastoma. But first, let's find out what his life was like before that diagnosis.
Right before the diagnosis, actually, my wife and I were in a separation. We'd been separated for about 1.5 years. We had our divorce papers all ready to go, and I lived in an apartment of my own. So we were separated, but we were still on really good terms. We even had dinner together once a week. And I came over and helped out, because I was the house husband before that, so I felt bad. So I'd come over once in a while to make a dinner or even do some chores that I always did.
Yeah. So tell me about your music.
So I've been a flamenco guitarist working with other guitarists, but mostly singers and dancers with flamenco groups. I've been doing that, not quite as a career. It's a difficult career to make happen, but I've been doing it most of my life. I originally went to college at Cornish College of the Arts for classical guitar, and I got into flamenco from there. Loved flamenco the whole time I've done it, and I've only loved it more over the years. I always really loved the rhythms, the rhythmic aspect of it. I enjoyed working with dancers. It was a good way to meet women, because they're mostly female students. That's how I met Emma. She was a flamenco dancer at the time. When I met her, she was in a class, and I was accompanying the class. I really liked that. I really liked working with the dancers and doing this really percussive. You really use the guitar as kind of as a drum, as a percussive instrument. It involves kind of tapping on it.
Yeah.
I think a few weeks before I ended up in the ER, I noticed that my left hand fingers weren't working as well when I was typing. It was really obvious. And I don't know how I blew that off, because I felt like, okay, I think I was sort of getting into the trap of self-diagnosis of a lot of people. So I thought, okay, well, it doesn't quite seem like a stroke, so I guess I'm okay. It wasn't like, oh, maybe I should check with a doctor and maybe see what it could be instead of a stroke, because it just wasn't it was too gradual for a stroke.
Right.
So I just thought, oh, I guess whatever it is, it'll pass. But it was really obvious that my typing was a lot worse than normal with my left hand. And it started to affect my guitar playing, but I don't remember exactly when I noticed that. About a week before I went into the ER, I started getting really bad headaches. And instead of taking that seriously, I just took a lot of ibuprofen, a lot of Aleve, and that basically managed them.
Yeah.
Until a day before the ER, maybe 2 days before, I actually had a seizure. It was a physical, I guess, I don't know what they call it, a focal seizure. It was just in my mouth. So I never, even up to now, I've never had a full grand mal seizure, thankfully. I've been on anti-seizure medication, but I had that, and my whole mouth, I was on a ladder at work, actually, because I was a painting contractor. I was up on a ladder, and my whole mouth and left side of my face started to kind of jerk. So clearly it was a seizure in my face. Once it was past, I kind of just forgot about it, or just pretended like it didn't happen, actually. So I got down off the ladder and just kind of waited for it to stop, and it stopped a few minutes later. I think I still had headaches too, so I think I took the rest of the day off just because I had a headache.
And what was it that finally made you go to the doctor?
Finally, the day I went to the ER, I was extremely sick. So it was like worse than the worst hangover. It was like dry, and I didn't have anything to throw up, but I was just dry heaving the entire day. And I kept thinking eventually it would get better. I didn't even know, I had no explanation for it. I hadn't had anything to drink or any reason why I would feel that way. I thought it must be some kind of sickness. So I called a friend to take me into the hospital thinking I must have something, I don't know what. So I asked him to take me just to like urgent care or something, but he said, no, we're going to the ER. So I'm glad he said that. And he took me down there. They immediately gave me I think a CT scan and MRI, and immediately found that I had a tumor. So I wasn't not diagnosed with glioblastoma for a while later, till I actually got the biopsy results after the surgery. But they knew it was a tumor. It turned out to be grade 4. And I found out later, at the time I went to the ER, apparently my brain had been bleeding really badly. I was in really bad shape. Maybe I was lucky to have even, survived the experience. It was just a lot of swelling, and that was why I felt so sick that day. And she said she was surprised I was able to get up that day at all, just given how my brain looked from the scans.
And when did they say to you, Ben, there's nothing we can do to treat this. You need to go into hospice?
Nobody ever said that to me. But when I decided to go on hospice, I just had treatment options weren't very good. I think that there was other types of chemo, different ones. I didn't bother to learn all the names or options because my neuro-oncologist she didn't say don't do it, but didn't very strongly recommend it. And I also felt like I had decided initially to do the chemo partly because my wife, my mother were there in the appointment, and I felt not that they were pressuring me personally, but I felt like, oh, if there's anything I can do, I should do it.
Yeah.
But then I changed my mind, and I decided that it didn't sound very appealing. It didn't seem very promising. And so at that point, I decided not to do it after all.
I want to give a bit of a heads up here in case you're triggered by the sound of a dog's toenails on the floor. It turns out that Ben's dog Freya really hates to have her toenails cut, and so you will hear her in this segment as she walks around the house, and I don't know, maybe it's her attempt to get involved in the whole flamenco scene with the little percussion. So just a heads up, that's what that sound is.
So I was struck in your email by 2 sentences that you wrote. One, that you want to talk about death, you like to talk about death, and 2, that your friends have offered some kind of distraction for you and you didn't want that. So tell me about that.
Oh, yeah. Maybe I was being a little bit dramatic. I don't know. I've just never been somebody who's dislikes the topic. I mean, it's not as far as my own death, but I just noticed that 2 separate people mentioned that. An old friend contacted me on Facebook because as a response to my Facebook, I did a public Facebook post.
Oh yeah.
Just because I hadn't told a lot of people, I didn't want to go around and tell everybody individually. Mm-hmm. And the way he put it was like, oh, if you want to talk, if you need a distraction. I think he's just the kind of person who, I think if he were dying, he would want to be distracted from it. Another friend, we were talking about a sporting event, and he said, "Oh, that'll be a nice distraction." I thought, well, no, I don't really think I need to be distracted from it.
Yeah, that's pretty much that thing where we project onto others either what we're afraid of or what we would want, and then we assume that they would want or afraid of the same thing that we are. And it's the same thing with giving people attention. Maybe we would want somebody there every single day, and maybe not. And as charming and warm and compassionate we may think we are, it can be really exhausting for the other person.
For a while, I felt like I was getting too much attention, more than I wanted. I didn't like feeling obligated. Like, I didn't feel fair. I'm like, just because I have brain cancer doesn't mean I should have to take on new obligations to other people. I wanted to be selfish and say, this is about me.
I think that story is really important for people to hear.
Yeah.
Because many people's first response is to smother you with attention. Maybe we were giving you 5 on the attention scale, and now we want to give you 10.
And also, I think I talked to other people from the support groups. Sometimes people kind of assume that they know what you want, or they start offering, like, doing stuff for you and offering things that you don't want. Especially when I really had my independence, people were already offering to help me with all kinds of stuff I didn't need help with, and I didn't need done for me. And even now, once in a while, I feel that way. I'm like, why would you go get something for me when I can still walk?
So you seem very kind of even-keeled about this. Were there ever moments where you had big emotion, like big anger or despair, or?
I feel like not a lot, and I've almost wanted to have more emotion because Emma sort of felt like I've been flat. Maybe I'm burying it or something, or I've wanted to at least feel sad together with her, because I am very sad that I'll be losing her and I'll be losing Hudson and I won't be able to see him grow up. I'm really sad about that. Otherwise, maybe I'm not a very emotional person. I am in some ways. I always have been. My mom has said that I have strong feelings. Like in the past, I've actually had a lot of anger, but about this, not. In this case, I'm not so angry because there's nobody's fault.
So Ben had 2 friends, oddly enough, flamenco guitarists, who both died of cancer. And I asked him if the death of those friends in any way helped prepare him for his own death.
Probably at least the second one. The first one was several years earlier during COVID, and he didn't even tell almost anybody that he was dying. I didn't know he was dead until after he died. It was interesting to see how 2 different friends dealt with it, because that was very different. He really didn't want to impose on anybody, and so that was one way to deal with it, which is different than my choice. The other friend, he got everybody quite involved, and he even did like a posting on Facebook toward the end where he wanted to do like kind of an intercessory prayer. He wasn't religious, so it wasn't like an official, he didn't call it that, but it was more of a spiritual. Like he wanted people to send out all their prayers and well wishes to him. In terms of public involvement, I think he actually went further than me, so in the other direction of getting people extremely involved. And I think I took more examples from the way the second one, getting involved with the community rather than kind of cutting yourself off, I think.
So what do you think has been the hardest thing for you in all of this?
It's been hard that I wish I had done more things earlier. I think really my musical goals was the main thing, having a real musical career, or if not a career, not money-wise really, because just really getting more to the level I wanted to get to as far as a musician and having more impact on the community. At the time, one thing I didn't mention is at the time of my diagnosis, we were all moving to Spain. Yeah, even though we were separated because I wanted to move there. We were all going to do that. So I guess that's a bit of a disappointment that I wanted to go there and just really get my flamenco up to the next level, and really studying in Spain for a while would have been the way to do that. And either stay there and have a full career there, or come back here and just be able to really contribute more with all the knowledge. That's all been a disappointment.
What helps you get through all this?
All the people in my life have helped a lot. in the end, I ended up really appreciating that we didn't move to Spain because I knew that I'd be leaving all my friends behind. I'd be leaving a lot of stuff behind. I knew it would be difficult for Hudson. It made me much happier just to be here in Seattle and to have all the community and family support. That has helped a lot. Being back together, the fact that actually this brought us back together. We got back together after my diagnosis. The doctor was recommending I don't live by myself, and so I moved back in with Emma mainly just for safety and for practical reasons. Mm-hmm. And they were in the middle of selling the house because we were going to move to Spain, so it was all very complicated. So we moved back in. I moved back in with them for about a month until the house sold. It was a good time for selling it anyway. So that has been very helpful that it actually got us back together and we sort of fell back in love again.
That's wonderful. I was going to ask you that, but I wasn't sure how to ask you that.
So that's been definitely a positive thing. I was pretty impressed with her because she could have done the opposite. She could have been like, well, why would I get back together with somebody who's terminal diagnosis?
I want to go back to something that you said about being a house husband before, because I wanted to ask you about meaning and purpose, and you just said something about that. So it sounds to me like you were like a house husband before, and you pretty much enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Not so much the painting job. And so now, do you feel like you still have meaning and purpose in your life, that you're able to do that?
Yeah, throughout this whole experience, I think that the example I can set for my son is still important, and that we still have a relationship is important, but that he can, this will be a hard experience for him. I'm sure it has been, and it will be as I'm dying. But I think he can grow and really benefit from the experience. And I think I've been able to be a better father in a lot of ways during this experience, for one thing, because I quit drinking. That helps. But I've also been able to really focus on what's good in my life and focus on him more and family, rather than, because I kind of took it for granted a little more before my diagnosis. I think that I was more likely to focus on whatever in my life I didn't have yet or what I wanted. Like my musical career wasn't going where I wanted it, or things I was unhappy with about my marriage. It wasn't perfect, otherwise we never would have broken up. But I tended to focus more on those things rather than on what was good in my life. In terms of my son, I feel like it's easy for me to forget that I haven't always, people are like, oh, you're a great father. I'm like, or you've been a great father. But I'm like, I know that I've made lots and lots of mistakes, and that I'm a better father than I used to be.
Well, how do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as a good father. I think that said, that's probably what I'm most proud of, is that I've been able to be his father, and not just being a father at all, but also to somebody on the autism spectrum who was an extreme challenge in his early years. Getting through that, and just that he's turned out so well. Both of us did a really good job parenting him. And I was the stay-home dad when he was also, my wife still did basically full-time work and a full-time mom at the same time, I have to admit, because I couldn't breastfeed him. There's a lot of things I couldn't do when he was a baby.
Damn, what's the matter with you?
She tried the pumping thing for a while, but that was tricky. So I did more than what your average father does when he was really young, even though I struggled with it.
Are you on the spectrum?
Not officially. Me, I definitely have qualities like that, and I think his autism definitely would come more from my side of the family than from Emma's.
Has your impending death changed your attitude about life?
Yes. Recently, I'm not sure if it's changed, but over the course of my diagnosis, I was happier overall since I was diagnosed. Well, for the first almost year, for one thing, I was totally sober for the whole first year, and that felt really, really good.
So how has it changed your attitude toward life?
It's changed my attitude, that I've been a lot more, I think, grateful and appreciative and more present. But I think I've been able to live more in the moment. I've been able to let go more of kind of the petty grudges, and I think I've been less angry, more appreciative of the community here in Seattle.
So have you and Emma talked about your funeral or your memorial? What do you want to do with your body?
I didn't really care about it at all, but Emma wants me to give her some preferences so that there's not like nothing. Mm-hmm. I think I want it to be simple and easy. So just cremation. And I told her I really didn't care what was done with my ashes, but she wanted me to tell her something. So I think having them dumped maybe in the water outside Carkeek Park would be nice. I think just a party, I even told her even just online, unless people really want to get together. I don't want people to feel like they have to travel from far away, but I want them to be able to attend it, so I do want it to be on Zoom. I don't know if I'd call it a service, because there wouldn't be any readings, probably, unless I come up with something. But I also don't want people to have to listen, like sit there and be bored by my philosophical opinions or whatever.
The thing to know is that it is really helpful for people left behind, as it were, to know what you'd like. But it just takes the burden off everyone to plan something. And that goes for those of us who are walking around right now without a terminal diagnosis.
How does it feel for you to talk about your own memorial service?
It's kind of weird.
Well, you can look at it this way, Ben. It takes the pressure off your friends and family to, go, oh my God, what are we going to do for this? And it'd be like, oh, well, Ben took care of it.
Yeah,
cool.
And that's what Emma wanted. That's really what she wanted, to make it easy and so that she won't get blamed for messing it up or whatever, or for doing it the wrong way. Or if I'm the one who planned it, then, and people don't like it, then she can say, well, he demanded that.
Blame it on him, and he's dead. Blame
it on him, he doesn't care. Yeah, he takes full responsibility.
Okay, I have to disagree with Ben about one thing. I don't feel like 45 years of his life is quite enough. But we accept what we're given. Because if we don't, then we go out kicking and screaming, much like the way we came in. Or to think of it another way, we go into whatever is next, kicking and screaming. And that doesn't seem like a good way to begin. Thank you, Ben Phipps, for your time and your willingness to talk and for your beautiful music. And more about that in a sec. Thanks also to Blue Dot Sessions for providing my intro music. And thank you for listening. I'm Deborah Jarvis, the host and producer of The Final Say. Remember to pick 2 things out of this episode and use them in a podcast review. And so today we're going to do something different, and we're going to go out with Ben playing Bulerías Menor, and he is accompanied on the cajon by Ben Woods, and the clapping, or the palmas, is provided by Esther Marion, Jackie Macklin, Eve Salonen, and Amelia Moore. And if you want to see videos of Ben playing guitar, or hear him and his wife Emma talk about their experience, I'll put the links to the video up in the transcript of this episode on the website, thefinalsaypodcast.com. Okay, are you ready? Put on your dancing shoes because here's Ben.